Are we live? Are we live? We've got lots of notices. Are we live? I'm
Yes, we're
not
starting
sure.
now.
Here we are. Good morning, everyone. Hey, yes, woohoo! Here we are again. Um,
You're pretty centered. You look good.
Good, good. All right. So we're just checking to make sure that you can all see me in the right way. If I fidget this morning, it's because my back is out. It's been out for several weeks. I'm so lucky. I get all these little aches and pains. All right, let's get into this. So, first of all, I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide Gregor, who is standing, as always, to my right side. To my far right, we have Kachoro. I'm not going to say anything to him because he's sleeping. He's exhausted. My puppy's exhausted. I'm going to tell you exactly why. Hello, darling. He's heard his name. I'll tell you exactly why he's exhausted in a few minutes' time, and and it has to do with Michelle. And Michelle is here with us as well on the floor. Say good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
So first, let me tell you why my puppy is absolutely wiped out and exhausted. He's been on holiday. He's been on a vacation. He went to visit two puppies. Can we have their names, please?
They're rough and tough.
Really?
That's what their names are, rough and tough.
So I didn't know that. I don't know why I didn't know that, but I didn't know that. So Michelle has two puppies, Rough and Tough. And how old are they, Michelle?
They're just a year.
Just a year old, which means that they're lively
Very.
and rambunctious and so on and so forth. And Kachoro's been to visit with them for the last 3 weeks. He's been there and excuse me, having a great time with them. He's been spoiled, completely and utterly spoiled. He has been spoiled by Michelle's two daughters, by everybody who's been in the house, I think, right?
Pretty close, yeah.
He's been allowed to sleep in the bed, not just on the bed.
Boy.
And he's now going to go. He's now finding his own corner where he can just collapse and go to sleep. But anyway, he's been having a great time. So thank you, Michelle, for taking care of my puppy over Christmas and the New Year for me. Because without that help, it's very, very difficult. As all of you pet lovers know, it's very, very difficult to go away or to spend any kind of quality time with family who don't live close, unless you're sure that your puppies are safe. So Michelle took care of. She just came, picked him up from the house, and you took him away, didn't you?
I did. And you know what? He didn't come back until you were home. Because every time I tried to get him up to bring him with me, he would snuggle back into the blanket on my daughter's bed.
Yes, because he was exhausted and spoiled. Exhausted and spoiled. So anyway, all right. So I do hope that everybody had a good Christmas and New Year. Please forgive me. I'm going to be trying really hard not to cough. I still have got a wretched cough. I've not been 100% over Christmas and the New Year. However, this is the first time in 5 years that I have not, keeping my fingers crossed now, that I have not had bronchial pneumonia or anything near it, or even just plain simple pneumonia. I've not had anything. I've had heavy colds, but boy, have I been dosing myself up with all sorts of natural remedies. And I found this amazing herbal concoction, Chinese, and you take 4 tablets 3 times a day. I know it sounds like a lot. And they're these little yellow pills, but they are amazing. They are immune boosters. They don't cure anything, but they, whatever's in them, they say, it helps to boost your immune system and so on and so forth. What with that and of course, my ginseng and royal jelly, which I always take when I travel anyway and have done for years and years and years, it seems to have worked. You know, whoopee for me. And if anybody wants to know what it is that I've been taking, please email us, rosemary at rosemaryltea.com, and I'll tell you all about it. I can't guarantee it's going to work for you. I'm making no promises and I'm making no claims, but all I can tell you is, again, this is the first time in 5 years that I haven't been really, 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 really sick. Anyway, that's me. So consequently, we had a wonderful Christmas. My brother's family came over. We spent Christmas Day with them and Boxing Day, and we had a party as usual. And yes, I was able to cook for the party. We had a Boxing Day party. I'm going to explain Boxing Day to you a little bit because so many people have got different ideas of what Boxing Day is. So, Boxing Day started in Victorian times, and basically all of the churches around the country, I'm talking about England now, all of the churches around the country used to have a poor box. Some churches, I think, actually still do have poor boxes, but anyway, people would put money, the wealthy would put a penny or two or whatever in when they went to church on a Sunday. And the day after Christmas, I've no idea why it shouldn't have been the day before, so people could have a nice turkey on Christmas Day or something, but anyway, so on the day after Christmas, they would open the poor box and they would share the contents, the you know, whatever the monies were, with the people of the parish who were poor and who, you know, couldn't afford. So the church would do that, but also the day after Christmas. So you've got the poor box, Boxing Day, when the box is opened, but also on Boxing Day, the wealthy, the people who could afford their Christmas turkeys and their plum puddings and all of the other stuff that people used to eat on Christmas Day, probably, well, we still do, but the day after, of course, the very wealthy would never consider eating leftovers, so they would actually box up their leftover foods and again send it round to the you know, the lord of the manor and to all his workers and in the cottages and the farmers and so on and so forth who worked for them, kept the land going and all the rest of it, and they would divide their leftovers, which there would be a lot of, and they would divide their leftovers and send them to the cottages, again boxed. So this is how Boxing Day came about. And I always make a point of, always in the past made a point of having a Boxing Day party, and I've had as many as several hundred, and I've had as few as couple of dozen people, depending on the day, depending on the where we are, depending on where we are in the community or in the world. We always have a Boxing Day party. So we had a Boxing Day party this year, as now Samantha's taken over the mantle, and I'm just the cook. I'm just the one who slaves away in the kitchen. But people come and they're so used to me, and they come, so Samantha will invite them to come to the Boxing Day party, and we often get responses like, well, I'm only coming if your mum's going to make the trifle. Well, will there be Christmas cake this year? Is she going to make her almond tartlets? All those sorts of things. And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. And of course, we do invite people who are not used to it, who have never been before, and now they're looking forward to next year too. So Boxing Day is a big, big day for us to celebrate, and we just love it. We would love to know about your Christmases. We would love to know about your traditions. And if you have any, why don't you send them in to us, Rosemary at rosemaryltea.com, and we might actually do something with them. I'm not going to say anymore because a little idea is forming in my head. You know, competitions, maybe prizes, that sort of thing. Maybe a book or two might be going out to somebody or another, you never know. But if you could send in, you know, any traditions that you have, and like I do, I've kept to many of my parents' traditions, but I've also introduced some of my own, which of course now Samantha does too. But on Boxing Day also, we always keep a gift back, and anyone and everyone who is in the house on Boxing Day morning, I mean overnight and staying or coming for breakfast, anyone who is in the house on Boxing Day morning gets a gift. And I always keep a gift under the tree. I used to do it for Samantha. I do it now for Samantha and for Reese, and anybody else who's in there gets a gift which sits under the tree and is not to be opened until Boxing Day. And that is my tradition, which so I know that Samantha will carry it on. Do you have a tradition that you introduce to your family? We'd love to hear about it. Do you have a tradition that you do particularly on New Year's Eve? We'd love to hear about that. So please write in. Competition time is getting close. That's all I'm going to say about it. Please email us, rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. Let's have some fun. And I'm going to read out some of those traditions. Let's keep Christmas and the New Year going for just a little bit longer, right? Don't you think that's a good idea, Michelle?
It's a season of sharing.
Okay, so having said that, we do have a topic that I would particularly like to talk about. However, I know that there's some of you there already wanting to ask questions, that sort of thing, comments, anything like that. So
Suzette is on.
Suzette is on. So maybe does she have a question or something that we'd like to talk about?
She's the one from the email.
So why don't are there any questions? Anybody
Yes,
got any
Dean
comments?
has a question.
Who does?
Dean.
Who's that?
You know Dean.
Who's Dean? I've forgotten.
He's my biker friend.
Just kidding. Go on. Yes. Hi, Dean.
He says, why does it seem like messages from the spirit world are about how happy they are and no specifics given? Why don't they tell us about how amazing it is or what they do?
Now, Dean, you know firsthand that there are many specifics given, lots of specifics given, about our personal life, about our worries, our concerns, our fears. And I can assure you that not everyone in the spirit world who comes through to talk is a happy camper. They have concerns, they have worries about those who've left behind. So I'm not quite sure about what this question is about, Dean, because you know perfectly well and from first hand that isn't so. People in the spirit world are not always talking about how happy and wonderful they are. They do, however, very often. I do get comments from people in the spirit world who talk about where they are and the beauty of the spirit world and the colours and so on and so forth. And that I do get lots of people who are saying how beautiful it is there. But that doesn't, I can say the same. I look out of my window and I was looking out yesterday. The sun was shining and glistening crazily on the lake. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So I could go on and on about that and not even mention the fact that I then had to hobble back to the sofa because I'd stood for 10 minutes and my back couldn't stand it any longer. I mean, things can be beautiful, things can be wonderful, but doesn't mean that everything is roses. I think I've answered that question. I think. Let's have another question, shall we?
The next one is, hold on, I gotta scroll back up.
In your own time.
Lots of comments.
It's been a while since we've done this, right?
I know, I'm all sidetracked this morning.
Okay.
Okay,
Focus, yes.
SN would like to know if there's any messages for her.
SN?
That's what it says.
Good morning, SN. We don't know who you are, or we don't know your gender or anything about you, but no, not right now. There are no messages. Excuse me. There are no messages. Let's go to the next question.
Hold on. I have to respond real quick.
Okay. Just take your time. Shall
I know,
just
I'm
talk?
a mess today.
Come on. Get on with it. She's very slow today. She's very slow today.
It's been a rough week.
I have to say, it's been a rough week for her. And she was up all night long, working a little butt off. So she's allowed. Are we ready yet? I'm sort of filling in space for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Suzette said that yes, that she would like to talk about the emailed question.
Great. So
that was where her daughter was asking about, since she's been visiting the church and the people at the church
Okay.
say that if she doesn't accept,
I got it.
got it. Okay.
You can sleep for 5 minutes now, but only for 5 minutes. They're
How
going to
about
wake you up
4.5?
again.
Four
So,
and a
or
half.
4.5 minutes. All right. So, uh, this we had an email from Suzette. Good morning, darling. Very concerned, but let me just reassure you that you are not the first to have had this issue, and you certainly won't be the last to have this issue going on. So I'm not going to specifically address Suzette's situation. I'm going to assess a situation which happens, it's a recurring situation that happens again and again and again. Um, let's first of all mention the word religion. The word religion, I find, I try not to use that word because the word religion means so many different things to so many different people. The idea of religion to some means that you're, when somebody says to me, am I a religious person? I find it very hard to answer that question. Do I pray every day? I do, but quietly to myself. Am I all about God? Do I go to church every day and so on and so forth? No, I don't. Religion, the word religion is the most confusing and often misused word, in my opinion, in the dictionary because it means so many things to so many different people. So when somebody asks me, are you religious, Rosemary? My answer is, I believe in God. I believe in a God force. I believe in a force that is good and pure, all knowing, excuse me, all seeing and all powerful too. So that is my answer to, am I a religious person? And you can make up your mind whether that to you says that I'm religious or not. I am not saying that I am, but I do have very, very strong and very firm beliefs in things that are beyond our comprehension, and things that are, I'm going to say, about that God force, that incredible and powerful God force that is out there. Now, I've heard this again and again. A minister, a priest, a clergyman, it doesn't matter who it is, um, totally believing in what they're saying. So let's not be disparaging of these people. They believe, they have faith in these things, and they're very prone to saying, if you are not, if you do not embrace Christ, and if you are not uh, belonging to a church or embracing Christ in the fullest meaning of the sense of the word, um, then you're not going to be, when you die, you're not going to go to heaven. You're going to go to hell. And I've heard a lot of people say that, and a lot of you have read my book, The Eagle and the Rose, in which I tell the story of a lady who was a patient of mine who had cancer. She was a patient of mine for a long, long, long time. And the day before she died, her minister, who'd known all about her visits to me and known all about the fact that she was receiving healing from my team and myself, so, knew all about all of these things, came to tell her the day before she died that if she did not denounce what he believed was evil, if she did not denounce me, if she did not denounce her healing, and if she did not embrace Christ fully and accept that Christ was the only one that she should ever listen to, and so on and so forth, then she would go to hell. This is the day before she's going to die. And many of you know the story. I was so angry about the whole thing and so frustrated about the whole thing. Anyway, in order to know more of that story, you can read in The Eagle and the Rose.
I believe you told that story on the healing show too.
I think I did.
I believe
so
you
if
did.
if you go to the Hands Around the World, healing Hands Around the World. If you go to our Wednesday show, I think was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe.
I think it's been longer than that. You were gone for 3 weeks.
Oh yeah. You're right.
longer.
You're right. Anyway, a while ago, if you check out that show, I tell the story of Wendy, who was my patient, who had this same situation. Now, all right, so imagine this then. Let's go to this scenario. You're in church. You enjoy church. You may be religious or not. Maybe you just like the experience of going to church. It's a nice experience going to church, and it's nice to be part of a community and so on. But then the minister says to you, if you do not embrace Christ, then you are doomed to hell and damnation. And there you are. Now you might think, well, I better embrace Christ then. However, and in the case of this lovely lady who we've had an email from yesterday,
That was while you were gone.
in that particular case, that then you have a father or you have a mother who didn't even know Christ, never mind embrace Christ. You have to understand that Christianity is a relatively new religion. There are most religions are actually older than Christianity. Plus, imagine how many countries there are around the world who've never heard of Christ. They don't know Christ. They don't know that religion. Does this mean then that if you've never heard of Christ, you're exempt then? Because, well, you didn't know, so it doesn't matter. Or does it mean that all of you who don't know, or all of you who are Buddhists, um, you worship Muhammad, you worship Allah, you whatever it is, whatever does this mean that? And I'm talking of 3/4 of the world who do not embrace Christianity because they've never heard of it, they weren't brought up with it, and so on and so forth. Are they all condemned to hell and damnation then? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Pastor, Mr. Priest, Mr. Whoever you are, who claims that if you don't embrace Christ, all of those who don't embrace Christ are doomed to hell? And, well, first of all, it makes no sense to me. Um, Second of all, we in the Old Testament was written and designed to influence people who were not educated. They were people who, the church wanted to control. They were the people who the church, felt, well, you're not educated, you need to follow our way. I'm sure they did it for the good of everyone. I'm sure they had the best of intentions, but we all know that embracing Christ or not, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, if you are concerned about your family who did not embrace Christ, whether you have embraced Christ or not, if you are concerned that your family did not do that, and that they should go to hell, because this is what this minister, pastor, whoever it is saying to you, I am here to say that I never heard such nonsense in all my born days, unfortunately, though I've heard it again and again and again, but it really and truly is a nonsense. I know Christ. I actually have embraced Christ. I was baptized when I was 16 years old. I am an enormous believer in the fact that there was a man by the name of Jesus Christ who was a great healer. Was he the Son of God? Aren't we all sons and daughters of God? Please use your common sense here. But I cannot compare my experiences to someone who is from the Middle East or the Far East who has a whole different religious upbringing. And I'm using the word religious, loosely. You go to China, they have all sorts of things going on. And who are we? And who am I to disparage what someone else has been brought up to believe? I know from my own personal experiences, having talked to people in the spirit world for many years, so over 40 years, I've spoken to people who, before they passed, embraced Christ, and I've spoken to people who, before they passed, were Muslims. I've spoken to people of Buddhists, you name it. I've spoken to all those people. I've never ever seen anyone who didn't embrace Christ condemned to hell. We go to the spirit world. We're embraced by our family. we learn whatever it is that we believe here on this earth, there's far more to it when we go to the other side. So if anyone out there is worried or concerned that their loved ones who did not embrace Christ or did not embrace Muhammad or did not embrace Buddha or whoever it is, if anyone out there is worried that if they didn't do the right thing, that means they are condemned to hell and damnation, please, 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 I know how concerning it is. I know how worrying it is. But please think about it, sort of come out of the box, get out of that box that's called religion, that box that is called church, that box that is, that is so narrow and has such a narrow view. Pop yourself out of that box and please take a wider look at the world and a wider look at all the religions and all the religious beliefs and so on. That God force, that God energy, if you are a good person, you are embraced by the light. Doesn't matter what you believe, doesn't matter who you worship. If you are a good person, you are embraced by the light. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be a good person, meaning a perfect person who never did anything wrong, because that means all of us, and then none of us, then we're all condemned to hell. So it's like, if you are basically a good person and a genuine person and a kind person, and you've done the best that you can under the circumstances that you were born into, you will be embraced by the light, and you will be embraced, whatever your religious belief is, you will be embraced by the light. You'll be taken in by that God force. You will meet your family. You will meet all of those who went before you. You will be embraced. As for hell, perhaps there is a hell, but sometimes I think that the hell is what we make here on this earth rather than what's going on out there. So please, please, please be reassured. But, I'm a great advocate of common sense. Take a really good look at all of the religious beliefs that there are in this world. There are so many. Every one of them has something right, and every one of them has something wrong, because we are not all knowing and all seeing while we're here on this earth. We do not know everything. There are so many things that we have yet to learn when we pass and continue our life. So please, 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 please use your common sense, keep your feet on the ground. And just because one person says, or if you don't do this, then you're whatever. We had an email this morning from, I'm sure, a lovely man with wonderful intentions, who told me that I had two demons around me, influencing me, or whatever. That I'm not quite sure what they were supposed to do, but anyway, I had demons. Well, they can clear off for a start. Just because somebody said it to me doesn't mean that it's so. So just sort of take a breath, take a step back, and use your common sense, and you'll come to the right conclusions for you. Right, that's my lecture over and done with. Have we got any comments, any questions, anything going on?
It's going crazy.
Let's go then.
The very first comment that I'm going to read, though, is going to be Suzette's.
Okay.
And it said, thank you. That's what I've told them always while they were growing up, that there is no one in perfect religion. It's like our language. I just want her to understand that she'll be okay and she'll see him again.
She will, absolutely, Suzette. She will, and you will, and you know that. Just applying common sense is the thing to do. So
all right, now I gotta scroll back up here so I can get to the next one.
This is
Sunshine is on.
Good morning, Sunshine.
And she says, who does Gray Eagle work with after you? Does he work with your family or your grandchild or another, like, is he passed down, when you
you mean when travel? I've gone, will he sort of, will he, I don't know. Sunshine, that's such a good question. I'm assuming, of course, never assume. It's always, what is that? Assume is it makes an ass out of you or something like that. Yeah, so I'm assuming he's laughing. He's put his hand on my shoulder as I'm talking to you and he's laughing. I'm assuming that we're going to be just continuing together. If I if I had my choice and I couldn't have him myself, I would like for the two of us to work with, of course, with Samantha and with my grandson Reese. Uh, who knows? We have to wait and see. I'm not gone yet. Don't just because I'm coughing and spluttering and my back's out and I feel like an old lady. I felt I was in desperate need of a walker yesterday. Just because I'm, falling apart. But I've been falling apart since I was 20. My back has been out since I had my kidney out and a rib out and all sorts of bits and pieces put in and then some bits taken out and so on and so forth. So I'm used to this. So, don't write me off quite yet. All right, let's
All right, Lori would like to know if there are different levels in heaven. Like as we grow in the spirit world, do we move to a
yeah,
new
different
level?
planes. I've heard this so many times. There are people who believe there are 7 planes. There are some people who believe there are 9 planes. I don't know where they get it from. Um, I've excuse me, I've never personally experienced that. I think there are different levels of education. I think there are different levels of knowledge, as there are here on this earth plane. Again, can we apply common sense here? I've never experienced. I've been over there and explored and experienced many, many times, but I've never ever seen. And Gregor is reminding me. So I'm going to say no. There are no levels in the way that we think there might be. Just, levels of common sense, levels of education, levels of knowledge. I'm sorry, very sorry. So go ahead. Oh,
Okay, Kitty wants to know if she's
morning,
holding back
Kitty.
her spirit person by always keeping him near
Say
her.
that again.
If she is holding back her spirit person
No,
by always keeping him near her.
no, you can't hold them back. Uh, I think, Kitty, I know exactly who you mean. Don't worry about it. Uh, he's fine. There's time. There's time to come and visit us. There's time to be around us. And there are times when we need them. And I don't want to scare anyone when I say this, but as you get used to not having your loved ones around you, as the years go by, you're happy to let go and to ease up a little bit, and you won't be quite so demanding. But whenever it is, whatever, I always say to people when they come to see me, you may not get what you want, but you always get what you need. And that's the same thing with those in the spirit world who love you and who care about you. You may not always get what you want, but you always get what you need. Don't worry, Kitty. Next one.
Deborah is on,
Good morning, Deborah.
and she said last summer I had a toad on my doorstep every night for 2 months. I put him back in the woods many times, and each night he came back and was waiting at my
Are you
door.
sure he wasn't a prince? Yes.
She just wanted to know if that meant anything.
Could be your prince is coming. You never know, Deborah. No, I don't think so. No. He might have liked you. Animals, as the Native Americans call them, tiny winged creatures, meaning butterflies, dragonflies, birds, and so on. Uh, and often small creatures will come to, bring messages to us. So, maybe you were getting a message that somebody's prince was coming, or that, who knows? I don't know. Let's go to the next one.
The little frog that lives in my pineapple bush, I call him Prince Charming.
Okay, so you see, Michelle has a little frog as well.
Yes. Sunshine would like to know, do we carry ancestral burdens? If so, is it part of our journey to fix or learn for future family members?
Oh, that's the old thing. That's the old adage. The sins of the fathers. Here we go with the church again, and here we go with the Old Testament again. The sins of the fathers are visited on their children. No, if if that were the case, I'd be in big trouble. I have been in big trouble. Should I blame the sins of my parents for all of the misfortunes and mishaps in my life? I don't think so. Take responsibility. I've got to take responsibility for making decisions that have caused so many of those mishaps and misfortunes. You know, not having common sense being one of them, not being as discerning as I might have been in certain relationships with certain people. Take responsibility for yourself. I don't believe that the sins of the fathers are visited on the children at all. And you know, so moving on to the next question. That's a good question, though. I like the question.
Sharon is on.
Morning, Sharon.
And she said, I'm Jewish, so I don't embrace Christ, but by all accounts, he was a humble man who wouldn't want people to worship him as he didn't consider himself above others.
Exactly. Sharon, I love you. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. As I've said before, and I know this sounds weird, I have seen Christ on many occasions, and on many occasions when I've been giving healing and I've laid my hands on someone's, you know, someone's shoulders perhaps, I've felt Christ's hands laying over mine and have just known that that's who it is. I've never, I think, I believe that God is a good and a kind and a gentle energy, a beautiful energy, which we can all tap into. Again, I'm going to say that if you go to the Old Testament of the Bible, you hear all of these, you know, all sorts of warnings, dire warnings, if you don't do this, or you don't act this way or believe that way, and so on. But remember, in those days, when the Bible was written, you know, the majority of people did not have an education. And the people who did have education were people who were part of the church. And one of the ways of controlling your flock, one of the ways of controlling your community was through fear. And so, you know, a very, very, it was, if you read the Old Testament, it was very fear based. And I think totally designed to you know, keep the flock in place, keep, you know, the church had the authority, and they needed people to understand that, you know, if they didn't obey the church and if they didn't obey the rules of the church, bad things would happen. When you start to move into the New Testament, there's a whole different feeling. There's not that fear based thing. There's none of that, you know, the doom and gloom and, you know, beware stuff. um, but remember, it was, you know, because people were uneducated, and I'm sure that you know, like, it's like unruly children. You know, we send our children to school, and we are relying on a teacher who can control the class a little bit fear based. If you don't do what I'm telling you to do, I'm going to tell your mummy or your daddy or whatever. But you know, there's the element of that, and in the Old Testament there's very much the element of that, because people generally were educationally very much like children, and needing to look to someone who they felt knew better or could help them and guide them and steer them. Let's have our next question. This is
Marlene
a good topic
is on.
here. Good morning, Marlene.
And she said, Rosemary, what do you feel about dying with dignity for those who are terminally ill and choose to pass when they are ready? As a healer, would this be sort of a healing your soul into your own death, or?
This is a complex issue, and whatever I say, I'm going to upset somebody, I know. But I believe that each of us is responsible for our own selves. I think that if someone is terminally ill and dying, and they choose to go and be helped to move on faster, I don't believe that you can die before your time anyway. So I think that, you know, things are preordained. So whether or not we choose it, if we choose it, it's because it's meant to be. So I think that I like to think that I am respectful of other people's decisions. It is not my choice to demand that someone lie in a bed suffering and in agony if they choose to do something about it. That's their choice. It's not my job to condemn, to judge. That I'm not about that. So if someone wanted to do that and they wanted to have me hold their hand, I would do it willingly, because I'm about trying to give peace and to bring harmony into a person's life, whatever their choices are. Of course, would, if someone wanted to take their own life, for emotional reasons or so, and it'd be a whole other thing. I'd be there trying to say no, 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 don't do that, please don't do that. I would be trying to reason and so on. But I do believe that every person has a right to die in their own way and their own choices. But I also believe that God has the ultimate say. So whether they, it's like somebody tries to kill themselves several times, it doesn't work out, it's because it's not their time. So I don't believe you can die before your time. Complex subject. Let's move on to our next question. Michelle is struggling. Are you struggling on the floor? Are you
I am,
struggling with your
because I
hip
had my
there?
leg up for too long and now I can't move it. It locked up.
Okay, can we carry on? And
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
you can suffer later, as I will. So it's like, go ahead.
Kitty said, "You go, Rosemary. Set the captives free." I think that's funny.
I love that, actually. I love that. And by the
And
way, Kitty, thank you for your Christmas card, and your sentiments were lovely.
Wendy said, "An owl came to me on Tuesday. It was a good message. If you're attuned to nature, it will help you."
Yes.
Mary says, "Mom passed this month a year ago, and I miss her and I love her. Is there any advice from her?"
Uh, I can give you some advice from Grey Eagle, who is actually he's telling me to tell you, live your life to the fullest, because it's what she would want you to do. Next question.
We have
Or
come
comment.
to the end of our questions right now.
You mean that's it?
That's
you
it.
mean nobody wants?
It was such a good start.
Yeah, we we had all this rush. All right. Well, I would like to just come back to what I was talking about yesterday uh, in our healing session. I know a lot of you may have seen it and some of you may not have seen it, but we were talking about my grandson, who asked me, would I show him how to connect, to see, to hear, to sense in whatever way with his puppy, because my daughter's dog Piper passed away in November. I was going to say November. Yeah, somewhere around Thanksgiving or just after Thanksgiving. It was very tough for my daughter, still is, and also very tough for Reese. They're sort of trying to come to terms with it, and on top of that, they have Thanksgiving and Christmas and so on and so forth. All of that happening. And we actually did put up a stocking for Piper, the puppy. We did put up a stocking for her. We put some little bits and pieces in there. My daughter had an ornament made for her. So for all of you out there who are suffering for the loss of your pets, please know that it's. I know people think I'm crazy, but I do believe that when you're close to your pets and you they're with you, and Piper was with me with Samantha for 14 years. It's very tough and it's very hard, and I know there are a lot of people who think that suffering over the loss of an animal is ridiculous, but it isn't. So try and as Samantha did, we made ornaments for the tree, and every year we shall remember Piper. But it was very interesting that Reese, my grandson, he's 6 years old. He would say if he were here, but I'm 7 next month, Nosy, he would say. So he's almost 7 years old. He wanted to know how could he connect with his puppy, and what did he need to do that. And we've had some lovely conversations. I did talk about children. Please, 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 if you have children who, even up to teenagers, who have this sensitivity and have this awareness, Please do not push it. Wait for them to ask you, as I waited for Reese to ask me. Please do not push it. Do not force it. Answer the questions as best you can, as honestly as you can. I think perhaps we should have. Maybe I'll write a book at some point about how we need to approach our children and how we can educate our children in the way of, connecting with or understanding, when they have a loss of some kind. And we're talking about my grandson who lost his puppy, but I also know that there are people out there and there are kids out there who have lost their parents, they've lost their grandparents, and that has to be tough too. Whenever a child wants, to know something, they'll ask you a question. Try not to deflect. Try not to, even if you don't know the answer, even if it catches you off guard, please sort of take a breath and answer it the best you can. And if the answer that you have to give them is, I don't know, I'm not sure, or something like that, that's okay, as long as you're talking to the child, answering the child, connecting with the child, it'll work out fine. Do we have any other comments or questions? Excuse me.
Teen said, I sent you an email with a question, but I already read that one. So I was looking for a second one.
And there isn't one?
No.
So there you are. Dean, we did it. We did. I think yours was the first question, actually. Anything else going on out there?
Lori said half of the class is here, Michelle. We're saving her energy for tonight.
Yeah, well, don't, because my energy's fine. I'm going to take a pill when I've done this and see if my back can sort of unseize, because it's all seized up right now. And I'm sitting here with a smile on my face, but really it's a grimace.
Deborah said that she lives in an area which was once all Native American, and that her young son Cassius sees and hears entities, and that he tells her that they're speaking to each other in what he thinks is Latin. She wants to know if he could be gifted.
Very well, kids, our children, I don't know how old this boy is, but our children are, very, very sensitive. And as I was saying on the show yesterday, very often, excuse me, very often, especially in teenage years, when hormones start to change and so on, that's when we become more open and we become more sensitive and more aware. But children generally are much more open, much more aware, and much more sensitive. And it's like my grandson, he sees, he hears, he knows, he connects. It amazes and shocks us sometimes, surprises us sometimes with the knowledge that he has. However, who's to say? He is certainly at the moment gifted, as in that most children are gifted, but who's to say, will he continue with this, or will he, allow life to take over and do other things? And we have to wait and see for that. But my daughter's very gifted, but has seen, fit to, she actually once said to me, I don't really want to do all of this because I've seen how everybody tries to contact you, and I see how tired you get, and I don't want that. So she made that choice of not wanting to, have that. I don't know what she calls it even. Whether Reese will do or not remains to be seen. I have a little inkling, but I'm not saying anything to anyone. I keep my opinions on that to myself. But yes, our children are very, very gifted, and we should pay attention when they tell us things. We should listen to them. And also, when children say, I feel this, or Mom, I have a feeling about such and such, that's when you really should pay attention. So listen to children, because they have, let's call it, instinct. They have tremendous instincts. They're able to connect. Michelle and I have been talking, and in fact, yesterday I went to dinner with my friends Jeff and Andrea, who are here in Florida.
Yay.
And he came and fetched me in the car because I can't drive at the moment. But anyway, so we had a delicious dinner. That's the first thing I should say. But I was telling Jeff that we're going to be doing some ghost hunting, and we're going to go, I think, Michelle, aren't we trying to figure out something for the spring? So where
And we're looking at there's an Indian burial ground where
yeah,
they lived.
we're looking at Indian burial grounds. We're looking at different things. If you know of anywhere in Florida that is supposedly haunted, a lot of places are supposed to be haunted, but they're actually I've been there and not seen anything. But that doesn't mean that they're not there. It just means I've not seen them. I'm not all knowing and all seeing, by the way, so just so you understand that. But we're going to be doing, some of that stuff. And Jeff said, if you do it in March, Rosemary, I can come with you. Please do it in March.
Oh,
I can
that'll be
come
fun.
with you.
That'll be fun.
So we're trying to set something up to do that. But sensitivity, we all have it, we're all aware of it. You just have to sort of, pay attention and acknowledge it. And especially for our children, just listen to them, be aware of them, and please do not say to them, oh, you're being ridiculous, or that's just your imagination. If our children tell us things, we should always listen, shouldn't we? Do we have any other comments or questions?
Dean said that they should all get extra credit for being on the show.
Who?
All your students.
Forget that.
Everybody else was laughing at it too.
No, that doesn't work that way. Actually, it doesn't work. It doesn't actually work that way.
Marlene said the story about your grandson and his puppy was so touching. He's so precious.
He actually did. See, this is the grandmother speaking now. He actually said to me, Mosey, I said to him, have you written your list for Santa Claus yet? This was before Christmas, obviously. He said no. He said, but I think I want to write to him and say that I don't want any toys. If he could just help me to see Piper one more time, that would be all I'd want for Christmas. I'm such a proud grandparent. I mean, how wonderful is that? Whether, of course, on Christmas morning he would have been happy, I don't know. But it was a lovely sentiment, and it was really, really the right thing for him to do. But yeah, I mean, I am showing him. And for those of you who watch on Wednesday afternoons or watch our show, even if it's not on a Wednesday afternoon, for those of you who watch about healing and so on, you'll know that I always ask you to sit, quietly, close your eyes, palms, hands up on your lap. And I was doing this with Reese. And I know I told this story yesterday, but as a proud grandmother, having the best grandchild in the world, of course, I know you're all grandparents out there, I think the same thing. But I'm right. Just kidding. So I was babysitting him, and I put him to bed. And as I put him to bed, his puppy always used to sleep at the foot of his bed. And as I'm putting him to sleep and tucking him in, he said to me, Mosey, where's Piper right now? Is she at the foot of my bed? I said, she could well be. He said, can we try and see? And I said, yes. And the next thing, his head was laid back, his eyes were closed, he shot his arms out of the bed with his hands palms upwards. He said, this is the way, right, Mosey? And I said, this is the way. So he actually, for all of my students who are listening, I have to tell you that my grandson takes the prize for best student, certainly, this week. Anything else that we have? Any other comments or questions?
Oh, no, there's more.
Okay. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Dean said he's sorry that the show goes in and out on him and that he must have missed the question. Randy is on. He said, hi guys, a little late, but hope everyone's having a great new year.
We are. Thank you, Randy, and same to you too.
Christina is on.
Good morning, Christina.
And she would like to know, can you outgrow sensitivity? She remembers when she was a child being able to call her friends and tell her and her family what clothes they had on, from colors to patterns, and now she can't do any of that.
No. Well, you can ignore your sensitivity. You can clamp down on your sensitivity. You can brush it aside when it happens, and a lot of people do. And especially, it's awful for all of those men out there listening who were told when they were boys, men don't cry. Well, we know that's sensitive boys do cry, sensitive girls do cry, sensitive grown-ups cry. It's the best thing to be. But you know, you can stop it. You can clamp down on it, because if people tell you enough, you're being silly, or here's the one I used to get all the time, which I know many of you did. The problem with you, or the trouble with you, is that you're too sensitive, or that you're oversensitive. My husband was very fond of saying that to me. The trouble with you is, the problem with you is. Well, it's not a problem. It's hard being sensitive. It's very tough for the people who are sensitive. But if other people find it a problem, it's because they are completely and utterly insensitive. But we do tend to clamp down that sensitivity, and we do try to, you know, control it, especially if we're in an environment where it isn't encouraged. But you cannot lose your sensitivity, and if you choose to, you can actually, you know, encourage that sensitivity and help it to grow and to become, you know, this is what my classes are all about: raising your level of consciousness. In other words, raising your ability to see, to sense, to feel, to be aware, which means to be more and more and more sensitive, which is, you know, the nicest people are a little bit crazy, but the nicest people are ultra sensitive, not oversensitive, not too sensitive, ultra sensitive. And that's what we all strive to be. Let's have another.
Vera would
Morning,
like
Vera.
to know, can people before they are dying in their beds days before see angels and cardigans angels in front of their beds? My mother
What do you
said
say? Cardigans? What?
cardigans angels.
I don't know what that means. But anyway.
Yes. Her mother said to her that there was, as she was laying there passing, that she could see a man smiling beside her.
Nice. Yes. You know, often as we lay dying, as people lay dying, they will see, maybe it might be their father, grandfather, mother, sister, whoever it is who's gone before them. It's not necessarily just their angels that they see, but they see their family. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yes, because we become, as we are leaving this earth, we become more and more open, more and more sensitive, more and more aware, because we're moving out of the physical body, which often prevents that sensitivity. And we're transcending, we're moving very slowly. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes months, but we are transcending beyond this earth place. So we have become much more aware, much more sensitive of what's going on around us that we don't usually see. Is that it, my dear? Keep going then.
No, it's not. Suzette said, your Reese is a wonderful child. Brag away.
He is, he's darling. He's such a gorgeous child. Yeah, anyway.
And Randy asks, is it normal for someone who has died to visit someone who they believe to be spiritually inclined in order to seek guidance in the spirit world?
Yes. Yes. It is. It's quite, you know, quite often the case. Yes.
Wendy said that her dad saw his gran as he was passing, and two people dressed in white.
Nice. Good.
And then that's
we're
it. Running to the end of it now.
We love it. We love it. We love all of these comments. A patient of actually one of my students, Kay, who was actually, she was on yesterday. You know, when we have patients, and especially when we have patients at home, we get involved not just with the patient, but we get involved with the entire family. Mm-hmm. And Kay went into the home of one of our patients whose family were supportive but not believing particularly. But then one day the husband of this the patient actually called Kay and said, I'm really worried, can you come over? And she came over, and he said, I'm really, really worried because she's hallucinating. And Kay said, what do you mean she's hallucinating? He said, well, she keeps, you know, sitting up in bed and talking about the tunnel in the wall. She keeps saying there's a tunnel in the wall, and there's a man standing just inside the tunnel in the wall. You know, what do we do? She's hallucinating. And Kay smiled at him, and she explained, no, she's actually not hallucinating. She's becoming more and more aware of where she is going to go. And it turned out that the man who was standing just inside the tunnel was her father, waiting to collect her which was lovely. But you know, sometimes when you don't know, it can be, you could be terrified if you don't know what's going on. You know, you can panic very easily. But you know, people see these things as hallucinations. I see them as, you know, your eyes have been opened to all of those things that are out there that we don't normally see.
My
That
mom
it?
saw my grandma when she passed.
All right.
She was telling me.
Well, that's good. Right. Anything else we got there? All right. Well, all right. That's it.
It's time for
Excuse
us
me.
to have lunch.
Pardon?
I said it's time for us to have lunch.
It's time for us to have lunch. I wonder what we're going to have for lunch.
Oh, Randy's got another one.
Oh, quickly then.
He said, I always hear from friends of friends, and they always tell me about our common friend, in which that is how I am able to find out who they are. I never know what to say. They always seem worried.
Oh.
And then Christina, can past loved ones show themselves in dreams as different ages? My dad came to me as himself before he passed. He also comes to others in their dreams much younger. Is it really him?
Yes. And that's that. We're going for lunch. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry, I don't mean to brush you all off, but it's 12 o'clock. We've been on here for an hour. We've been busy, busy, busy. My back has seized up tremendously. So as soon as I switch this off, it's a good thing because you will not hear me moaning and groaning and complaining. Michelle is actually getting up. She is she is desperate to moan and complain, but she won't do.
No.
So, all right. So, if you have any questions, please email us, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com. If you want a consultation with me, or if you want healing, or if you just want, you have a question or whatever it is, please put the topic in the subject line of your email. It just makes it very much easier and very much simpler for Michelle as she's going through all of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails that we get. If she can see what the topic is, she can deal with it. She can put it in that one little file straight away, and then we deal with them as and when we can. So please put the topic in there. So, you know, so whatever it is that you need to talk to me about, please just mention that. Again, I'm going to give you the email, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com. We are not doing Everything is Attitude tomorrow because Ali's busy, unless I can get a substitute, which of course I meant to do this morning and didn't do because I was bent over trying to stand up. Anyway, so it's probably not going to happen tomorrow. Everything is Attitude, but we're right back on track the following week. So we'll let you know what the topic is then, and what we're going to be talking about. So if you are a person who would like to know about classes, lessons, if you're a person who would like to know more about, you know, the books that I have written, or you want to know where to get them from, so on, anything at all, any questions at all, please email us, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com. And I will see you next Wednesday, definitely, for our healing show, where I'll be, you know, doing our healing meditations as usual, and again taking questions and trying to answer the best I can. And so until then, please, 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 it is Thursday. Have a very, very, very blessed rest of the day, and have a wonderful and a blessed weekend. That's all from me for now, and so I shall see you whenever it is.